Over the next 5 weeks we're going to be working on a collage project, and collectively we're going to make a book. The idea is that everyone will make at least one page, and the theme of the book is going to be autumn. We'll be posting a different video tutorial for each of the next 5 weeks. We'll be looking at slightly different topics, and we'll be starting off week 1. We'll look at monochrome, which is black and white. We'll move from that to colour. The week after that we'll do texture. Then we'll have a look at photo montage, and finally in the last week you can make a mixture of all these techniques to do whatever you like. The idea is at the end of the programme that you'll be able to pick the one that you've made that you like best, and we'll include that in the book. For week 1 we're going to start off doing a monochrome collage. You've all been given a little pack from Alison. We've got a range of materials for you to get started. It's meant as a starter kit. You can add your own materials to it. PVA that you've got is the usual PVA that we have in Campbell House. It's just been put into smaller bottles. That should be enough there for you to use over the whole 5 weeks. There's a Pritt stick for gluing lighter items, and a couple of wee glue spreaders to use with the glue. There's a pair of wee fancy scissors that does zigzag sort of cutting, a Sharpie, and you have an ordinary pair of scissors as well. You've got 2 envelopes. One says week 1, the other says week 2. We're going to start off this week with week 1. If you leave week 2 envelope until next week, what's in it? You've got a thick piece of card which could be used for the background because it won't warp so much when you put glue on it. Then black, grey, white sugar paper. There are some things that you find about the house. Tin foil, baking paper, which actually is quite good if you want to trace things as well. There's tissue paper. Be careful using the tissue paper with the PVA glue because colour might run in some tissue papers. Maybe best test a wee bit before you put it on your final artwork. This pack is just meant as a starter pack, so please do feel free to add anything else to it that you've got around the house that you can think of. This week though, make sure it's either black, white, grey or silver because we're keeping it tonal. So I've got some wee scraps of fabric, string, leaflets, papers, newsprint, magazines, that sort of thing. I've got a grey envelope. Anything that can be cut up and stuck down that will give a nice texture or tone. Heavier materials you'll need PVA to stick it on. Things like paper you can use a Pritt stick. It's up to you how you choose to use your materials, but I would recommend that we use the grey cardboard, the thickest grey cardboard that looks like the back of a sketch pad, as your background because it's more likely to withstand a lot of heavy gluing. We want to use the paper this way up, we'd like all your images to be this way up, portrait, so that the long side is up the way and the width is the narrow side of the page. This is because we're going to be making a book and we want all your pictures to be the same way round. So before we start, I'm going to tape my background card down. This is just going to be a help. When the glue starts to dry, it will stop the card from curling up and ruining your work. If you're using a nice table, it might be a good idea to cover it up with polythene or something beforehand because if you're anything like me, the glue goes everywhere. Okay, so now we want to think about what sort of collage we want to make. What sort of image is it going to be? Is it going to be an abstract image? Is it going to be a pattern? Is it going to be a picture like a landscape? Is it going to be quite surreal? Is it going to be humorous? It's up to you, as long as this week it's black and white and grey. It's up to you. Before you start, you might want to make a little sketch, or you might want to just make it up as you go along. I've made a little sketch. It's just a rough outline. I don't need to stick to it. I can experiment as I go along and just see where it takes me. Just autumny landscape with trees. I'm going to think about different ways of cutting paper and the different types of edges that I'm going to have. So you might want to start by tearing, or you might want to cut. It's a good idea to place your things on the page before you stick them down, just to get an idea of what they look like. You might want to change things as you go along. So I've got a torn edge there, I've got my little bit of fabric, quite like that on black. Think about as well things like contrast and tone, shades. Do you want it to look dramatic or do you want it to look something a wee bit more gradual? I quite like that torn edge there, but it's maybe a wee bit too high, so I've not stuck it down, so I can just move it and see what it's like. Right, let's put that there. Not sticking anything down at the moment so that I can move anything that I don't like. I'm going to use this sheet of paper. Doesn't matter what it says because I'm not going to be looking at the words. I'm going to use it just as a texture, as a black and white texture, and if you're far enough away from it, it will look grey. So try putting that under there. That's quite nice. If you're using things with text on it, you might want to use something that the words matter. This little thing here, a little barcode, I'm going to use that. These wee scissors will give a patterned edge. Things like tinfoil will need the strength of PVA to stick them. For paper it's quicker and neater to use the Pritt Stick. And you can use layers of tissue paper or greaseproof paper to build up and give lots of different sort of tones. What I'm going to do is I'm going to fold the paper and save some time by cutting out 4 at once. Think about scale. You might want to use repetitions of shapes but have it in different sizes, and you might want to have variations on a shape as well, so have it start in one way and changing it slightly. Try playing about with repetitions and variations and patterns. Think about textures and patterns and shapes and experiment and have fun, and we'll see what everyone comes up with next week.